It's the Odd Drunk Podcast, a very strange podcast. The drunkest show in the world. It's Jackson and Colton talking out of their ass. We don't care as long as drinks are poured. Sometimes we have our friends here. We will talk about anything. We don't care as long as we have beer. And if you let that whiskey ring. The Odd Drunk Podcast.
Yeah, I'm not doing another dinosaurs episode where we record like 2 hours of an episode. It goes well, and then whoops, we forgot to record.
As much as that ended up being a pretty good episode, it was terrible.
Well, the first take I think was actually a good episode. The second take was just us extremely frustrated.
Which
It
ended
just,
up
like,
making a good
speedrunning it.
episode, but it wasn't a fun episode.
It wasn't a fun episode to make.
Yeah.
Because we had to do it twice in a row, and we had no other choice. We sometimes we endure for you guys some psychological punishment from ourselves on our own choosing. No one's forcing this.
Yes.
Anyways, welcome back to the Odd Drunk Podcast. I'm really excited for today's episode. Actually,
Yeah, this has been a fun one to prepare for.
a ton of fun. These are always fun. If you read the title, we're doing video games in time again. This time, 1989, baby. And honestly, so we've done the series. So far, I can pull up our previous rankings on previous years.
Yeah.
Just give me one moment. Taking extensive notes for this one, actually. So we've done 91, which is only 2 years ahead of this year, and a very similar era, but this is even more of a crossroads, in my opinion.
Yes.
I mean, it really is.
This is an interesting
Breakout
year.
of 16-bit.
Yeah.
91 was when 16-bit really,
Like
you
you
know.
can argue that 91 was like the real beginning of the 16-bit era. But this was like
it ushered it in. This is like
this is
just the dawn.
yeah.
And then you have 2012, which was an incredibly mid-year, nothing particularly bad, and nothing particularly good.
This year was like the really good, the really cool post-credit scene for the 8-bit
And by
era.
the way, that was our first. Listen to our 2012 episode. We did have good things to say. Sure, Borderlands. Sure, Dishonored. I think maybe.
Yeah, Dishonored was 2012.
Was like one of the standouts.
It's just
for the
one of
rest
those
sequels,
years where
and then-
like we were like, I wish it was either 2013 or 2011 that we had done.
yeah, it's just not one.
Um,
It's not one of those good in between years, but
This is a
and then
pretty
you
good
had
year.
2002, which was definitely a solid year. I forget what games came out then, but we ranked it and I remember at least Metroid Prime, Metroid, two great Metroids, Prime and the Game Boy Advance one. And yeah, it's
Fusion.
the year to Game Boy Advance. Yeah, Fusion.
Metroid Fusion, fucking great game.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so good.
Was GoldenEye? No, it was. I don't think
No.
GoldenEye was one of them.
No, GoldenEye was earlier than that.
Mario Sunshine, right?
Yeah.
That was one. I didn't get to really play it that much in preparation, but yeah, 20.
Yeah.
I mean,
A
2000.
recap: 2002, Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, Grand Theft Auto Vice
yeah,
City,
Morrowind.
Hitman
Wow, I missed a
2,
lot.
Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Mafia, Kingdom Hearts.
No,
Splinter
definitely
Cell,
a solid year, but it didn't quite
Spider-Man.
reach. Oh yeah, Spider-Man.
Battlefield 1942.
Well, the movie version.
Resident Evil.
We're not talking about Spider-Man. The original version.
Yeah, the Wind Waker, which we
PS1
didn't really
version.
actually talk about on that episode, but
No, I think we mentioned it, and I
'Cause we-
I
neither
actually
one of
have
us
the Wind
played it.
Waker.
oh yeah,
I can emulate it
Been-
now.
yeah, because you have the.
Anyways,
we'll talk about the emulation.
I have this bad
stuff,
boy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Love it. Goes with me everywhere.
Maybe tell the listeners what it is.
It it's up to your imagination. I have
He's
a
got
bad boy and it
something,
goes with me
and
everywhere.
he's got something, and it's bad, and it's a
I can
boy.
fit it in my pocket. It's no, it's an amazing emulator. The Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, especially for if you're more looking to be on budget, if you're want to introduce yourself to emulation. I think it's not quite the introduction system. I think that would go to the Ambernick or the Mew
Yeah,
Mini,
that's what I did most of
but
my playing for this on was the
because
Ambernick.
there is some setup required unless you get one of the ones that are set up for you on eBay, but you're gonna pay a little more to do that.
Yeah.
But you can do that if
And
you
you
want.
and you know you
Um,
can the thing I like about these handheld emulators, you can emulate on a PC perfectly fine usually. But you just don't have that tactile analog feel. And
well,
that's how these games were meant to be played with
I like playing my retro
action.
games
Yeah.
on the go.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's what's so good. I mean,
Speaking
this
of playing games
yeah.
on the go, so yeah, check out Retroid. But anyways, um, speaking of playing games on the go, this is the debut of the Game Boy.
Yeah.
So already
Let's
console
pause
wise,
real quick.
okay, let's pause.
Hey Jackson,
I'm
what are
just
you drinking?
excited. Oh, good question,
You can't
Colton.
forget.
I'm drinking. I feel a little pretentious owning this out of a
Oh yeah.
Viking like bullhorn
That's a
mug.
cool
I didn't
mug.
buy it as a gift, but
Yeah.
it's a really good mug. A little awkward sometimes. I have a horn, but it requires like a stand, and it's
Yeah.
a bit much for this. I would definitely knock it down and spill it everywhere, which I don't want to do because I am drinking wine, Cabernet Sauvignon.
Ooh.
Uh, yeah, good stuff. And
You know what? What
yeah,
brand
I'm
or
taking a break from. Oh,
winery?
it's a black box
Oh,
wine. It was just box wine, but they're
Black
like
Box
a
is
better
fine.
one.
Yeah,
They're pretty good.
Black Box is
They
fine.
have the cartons, which is pretty fun.
That's what I like about Black Boxes. They sell tiny little ones that are like half a bottle of wine,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like
Yeah,
$5.
and I
I
drank
mean,
like 5 of those one night.
it's decent wine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's not
I
bad at
tried some
all.
nice wines this afternoon at work. We
Nice.
got to taste some Argentinian wines.
Ooh.
Kaiken, I think is the winery. They're nice wines.
Shout out to our Argentinian listeners, by the way.
Do we have an Argentinian listeners?
Argentina. I'm pretty sure a handful of them.
We
I haven't checked in a while, but I know we have South American
we get some South American listeners,
listeners.
and I can never remember which countries because it bounces around a little bit. I think
hear that you bounce around.
I think we've gotten
bounce
some,
around too much. We can't handle it.
listeners in
We're
Chile
too.
before.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice. I've always wanted to visit Chile. Actually, just uh, I'm just, this is a huge tangent, by the way, but this is a geographical like nerd thing. But an entire country that's coastal. You
Yeah.
know, I know they have some mountains. They have the Andes, right?
That's
A portion of them
yeah.
in Chile.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's basically like if California was its own country
Mhm.
geographically.
There's some.
that
I mean,
sense.
I've not been to South
Coastal.
America, but I'd like to go travel in there because everyone I've talked to who's actually spent extended time going through South America say there's some really beautiful, wonderful places to go visit
yeah.
and see down in South America. And a lot of Americans just don't think of South America as a place to go. They think of like Mexico,
They think of two things.
maybe like Costa Rica, or they go to Europe.
To be quite frank with you guys, South American listeners, most Americans think of two things when you say South America: Rio de Janeiro and the jungle, the Amazon.
Mhm. Yeah.
Deforestation, I guess that'd be the third one, unfortunately. But the forward-thinking Americans.
Yeah.
Also, they found those 40 kids that were lost in Amazon.
Oh, good.
They survived for like
I forgot about that.
almost a month out in the jungle.
Yeah, well, that's good news there.
But they found them. I think only I'm just gonna say they found them. That's let's not. This is supposed to be a fun episode. Anyways, where were we? Oh yeah, you drink Argentinian wine.
Yeah. Well, I'm drinking right now. I'm
Um,
drinking some Four Roses, some bourbon.
nice. You can never go wrong with Four Roses.
Yeah, it's good bourbon for the price, you know.
I'll take anything like that over like Crown Royal. A
Oh,
lot of
dude,
people at my work order Crown Royal, and I'm
Crown
like,
Royal
God, why?
is way overpriced.
And it's blended, and it's just I don't know.
If
I
Crown
feel
Royal
like
was $22 a bottle, I would think it's a little bit more worth it. And even then,
right.
I probably wouldn't buy it because I don't like blended stuff typically. I don't like
I had to
Canadian
unlock it.
whiskeys.
I don't know. Sorry, Canada. You have great things. Maple syrup, Ron Reynolds,
Yeah,
Ryan Gosling, I think. Rush.
yeah.
Great things, Canada. But you also have a
But
handful of bad things. Sorry, not sorry. But you would
yeah,
be sorry.
you don't make good whiskey, Canada. Sorry.
No, and you don't have the best pop stars, Bieber. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but
Drake
but they
is a
gave
little
us Neil
sus.
Young.
They did give us Neil Young.
So
Okay, I
that
take it back,
makes up for
Canada.
Justin Bieber tenfold.
I always
That's
forget. Oh yeah, he's an
yeah.
American now though. Or he has dual citizenship,
I don't
right?
know, but he's originally from Canada. He
Canada,
might
yeah.
now be American, but
I think he has dual
Canada
citizenship.
gifted him to us.
I think he got his citizenship just so he could vote in the last election, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Anyways, getting on to the topic. So 1989 video games.
Yeah.
It surprised me. When I first looked like at the list and stuff online, I was like, okay, there's some cool movie tie-in license stuff here, a lot of licensed stuff.
Mhm.
There's there's Game Boy games. You have Super Mario Land. You have the Tetris version. I mean, the Game Boy version of Tetris. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's gonna definitely be a good year, solid year. B, A, maybe A.
Yeah.
But then I went into more research and just looked on my catalog on my Retroid because with the Wi-Fi on most of my games, if they're titled correctly and everything, there's still some I have to fix. But it will look it up on the internet and like give you videos and like
Oh,
give
nice.
you
Yeah.
descriptions, like when it came out, like a brief description of the game and everything, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. So I was able to just search through different years on my Retroid.
Yeah.
And I came across definitely some gems and definitely some like groundbreaking games this year.
What's kind of interesting about this
Absolutely.
year is, unlike say 91, with the this year's with the exception of the Game Boy releasing, which there's 4 I think launch titles that were with the Game Boy. It's not a Nintendo year,
No.
which
I mean, there's some great Nintendo
Yeah.
standouts here, but
There's a few,
Nintendo
yeah.
did not. I mean, of course they dominated in sales, but we're talking in terms of
yeah, because I mean
the
the
games.
NES was still going pretty strong.
Yeah.
In '89.
Yeah, I think it sold like over 1 million units, like 12. I mean, not
Yeah,
12.
and there's a few games
1.2 million.
on this list that are NES games that are really good, but they're not like Nintendo published games.
No, you don't have any original Nintendo. Well,
there's one big one.
Super Mario Land.
Super Mario Land.
That's the big one, and obviously, yeah, they released the Game Boys, so you got to give huge props to Nintendo there.
Yeah.
So, it was still a good year for Nintendo, but
I mean, we can't like underestimate.
If you look at the games that came out, it was still a good year.
Yeah,
but
well,
not
like,
the typical domination. You had a lot of interesting things from.
Is like can't be understated. I mean,
Yeah.
It did a few things. It proved
why anything like this exists.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't, but it also
the portable.
In my kind of getting prepared for this video, there's a few things that like got pointed out about the Game Boy. It didn't just like launch like the handheld market, but it was a console that was as popular as it was, that was marketed not exclusively to children.
Right.
Nintendo didn't market this as a kid's toy. It was marketed to adults as well.
something for adults to play with on
Um,
their commute. In fact, that's
yeah,
where they got
which
the
was
idea.
kind of a big deal because the NES before this was marketed towards kids.
I think one of the
Like,
developers for Nintendo saw a guy playing with his calculator
yeah, well,
on
so
the
the guy
train.
I don't remember his name. I'd have to look it up real quick.
Was it
But but
Hiramoto?
uh,
I mean Miyamoto?
not Miyamoto. So it's the same guy who invented the Game and Watch.
Okay. And that
Came up
also
with
came
it
out, didn't it?
with that Game and Watch had been
Or
out
the
for a
the Z-
while.
Legend of Zelda Game Watch, I think, released this year.
Huh? Maybe, I don't know.
I
Um,
let me look that up again, but you go on.
but yeah, so the let's see. I'm gonna
Yeah, what?
I'm gonna probably butcher this. Gunpei Yokio or Yokoi. I don't know. Um he
Just
designed the
trying.
Game Boy, and he's the same guy who designed the Game and Watch. And uh no, it's a big deal because like I said, it was marketed towards um adults as well. And also, I mean, there were other handhelds that came out pretty shortly after this. And the Game Boy, what the Game Boy proved was that fun always beats out technology when it comes to video games.
Well, yeah, when they chose to
Because
go with
there were other Game Boy or handhelds that came out in the just a couple years after this that were objectively way more impressive. But
I
the
know the
Game
Game Boy
Boy,
Player, or what is it called? The next one that would come out had the green
the Game Boy Color.
coloring. Well, and then we would get the Game Boy Color. I'm talking about
Oh, right,
before the
right,
Game Boy Color.
right.
There was like a smaller one, I think. I'm not well versed on Game Boy history, but
Yeah.
you can watch a video essay on that. But yeah, I mean, before the Game Boy Color, you went from black and white to the green, which I think is charming, actually. Um, and
Mhm.
I think the black and white actually works if there's good sprite design and gameplay. If the gameplay really can.
Yeah.
But anyways, I played a couple Game Boy stuff, but I'm not gonna lie, I mostly played the home consoles and some Macintosh, Apple.
Yeah, I got really sucked
And
into Super Mario Land, and
that's easy to get sucked into,
I
but
beat
I
it.
tried to play stuff I never played before. Every time I do, oh, you beat it? Nice.
Yeah, I got all the way through it. Um,
But every time we do one of these video games in time, especially in these early eras, well, comparatively, yeah, definitely early eras. Um, I try to find stuff I've never played before, even heard of before. I mean, I've heard of most of the games I played. There's a
yeah,
couple, but um, I like to see what else is there, aside from the obvious ones. But
there's a few on here that I intended to get into, but I wasn't able to because I was very busy this last week. But
same, I did a lot of playing in the last couple hours of different games. But,
yeah, yeah,
I'll tell you about the ones I've played throughout the last couple weeks, and then the ones that I've kind of rushed into. But I got a solid experience on most of them.
yeah, yeah,
So you want to? I've got a list here. I say we start out with the licensed games, movie tie-ins, stuff like
yeah,
that,
yeah. Let's do it.
because this is a big year for that. This
There
is a
was,
huge movie tie-in year.
yeah,
It's not necessarily a bad thing. We got some good stuff out of it. So you have the Batman.
Batman the video
Yeah.
game.
Batman video game, 89. So the year of Batman.
I've played this in the past a bunch before. It's pretty cool game. It kind of takes some getting used to because it's a slower game than some other action
Yeah,
platformers.
it's paced a little bit more like Castlevania in
Yeah, yeah,
gameplay and platforming, but it feels a little slower than that. It's a bit more strategic.
hmm
Um, but I think the music's good. I think the sprites aren't anything to write home about, but the Batman sprite's fun. He's like purple and
yeah,
cool
Well, it's pretty good looking for
gameplay elements. No, it is.
for
I
an
like the
NES
coloring.
game. Like,
The coloring is
yeah, for an
definitely
NES title, it looks pretty nice.
no, definitely. But there's some other NES titles that I think beat it in that
Oh
category.
yeah,
But yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. The little whatever the toy trucks or whatever were so annoying.
yeah,
The running on the ground, hated it. But no, it's Batman '89. And nostalgia
yeah.
plays a big factor into this kind of game, you know.
I
But
recently
it's
rewatched the Michael Keaton movies, and so it's fun playing this after watching those.
I, I I'm glad I haven't seen The Flash yet, honestly. I
Yeah.
don't really intend on seeing it until I'm in a situation where I have to. I'm just being quite honest. I mean, part of me really wanted to see it because Michael Keaton was back, but then I heard they kind of this version portrayed in the Flash was like a parody,
Yeah, I've heard a lot
and
of
I
people
don't
say
like
it's
that.
Michael
So
Keaton, but it's not really the same Batman.
it's not well written. I don't
Like,
know. It's not the same darkness, the weird
yeah.
Tim Burtonness. Anyways, another movie tie-in game, and this one. Actually, I have an interesting thing to say about this one. But another one I played was Ghostbusters 2.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I played a couple versions. I played the Game Boy version and NES version. Game Boy version, I thought the music, it didn't have like the theme music, but it had its own soundtrack. I thought it was definitely charming, cute little chibi versions of the Ghostbusters crew. And it had an interesting gameplay mechanic where you choose two Ghostbusters. One of them drops traps, the other one does the proton pack.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah. I played a bit of the NES version for this, but I've not touched the Game Boy.
I think the Game Boy version's superior, especially gameplay wise. But
Yeah,
it's definitely a charming little game. I didn't really understand the gameplay, but I didn't give it enough time to really get into it. But charming Game Boy game. The NES version, however, very fun, right? Charming, uh, the graphics for NES, I mean, it's actually pretty good graphics. Good, the sprites are definitely the weakest part of this, but the backgrounds and stuff is good. The soundtrack's great. It's just playing the Ghostbusters theme,
yeah.
and a chip tune version, and it's got some Contra styling, like gameplay, diagonal shooting, stuff like that, which definitely gave me hopes about it. And then I just started playing it, and it was extremely clunky, overly difficult. The cat, every time you ran into the cat, would just stun you, and then it would end the game. I did not find it enjoyable to play, only fun to look at for a little
Yeah.
bit. Definitely one of those, movie tie-ins without a lot of effort put into the gameplay. I don't know. Maybe skill issue, but I don't know. It was what you expect.
Yeah.
Another one I played. This one's actually a horror game. Friday the 13th, the game.
Yeah. So
1989.
this is notoriously a bad game.
Yeah. It takes some big swings, actually, in a couple aspects. Yeah, the gameplay. Well, it's just weird. It's incredibly strange.
You're some knife.
You're like a camp counselor.
counselor.
Yeah, like throwing ninja stars or CDs or I don't know.
Yeah.
Throwing a bagel. And you're fighting like little Bigfoots.
Uh-huh.
And then there's like a timer and there's a counter for like you have to light lamps and go in different houses and search. And I thought it was really cool how it switched the perspective. Like when you went in a house,
It
like it would show
tried.
behind your character. It definitely did some things, some interesting, cool things. But it doesn't make any sense. The gameplay sucks. Uh,
Mm.
and just slow, awkward. If I want to be more specific, but it just sucks. Jason is blue and purple, which that's fun. You can play as that. You can play with that skin in the new Friday 13th game, the
Nice.
asymmetrical one. Um, but aside from it's just novelty, it's a nothing game. I could not play more than 5 minutes of it. It
Yeah.
confused me. It was clunky, and it gave me anxiety, which I guess it was successful in evoking emotions
It
because it gave
evokes
me
some
anxiety.
emotions. Yeah.
With the timer, it definitely gave me anxiety. With the timer going off, and it's like the kids, like we're dying, and like I'm running around. I don't know what to do, and mostly fighting Bigfoots. Though Jason showed up once in my playthrough.
Yeah.
So, it could have been, something like Splatterhouse, where you play as Jason, but they were too afraid to go that far, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyways, you have
Let's
any
see.
other movie tie-in ones you want to talk about,
Well, there is
or just licensed?
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
I didn't get to play that.
It's okay. Like it's got
Great
some
movie,
cool,
by the way.
Oh yeah, great movie. It's got some cool kind of stylized like sprites and stuff. It's just a side scrolling like
Castlevania,
platformer.
like
Yeah, Castlevania like kind of
I imagine, with the whip.
but it's fun because you go through the events of the movie,
Oh, that's cool.
So
How's the
um,
soundtrack?
it's fine. I mean, it's Indiana Jones, but 8-bit.
Nice, nice.
So
it didn't do like a
it's
different thing, so that's
no,
good.
it's a fine game. It's yeah.
Um,
If you're a
yeah, I didn't get
huge
to
fan
play
of
that, but
Indiana Jones,
I
maybe give
I
it a
don't have
shot.
time to. I didn't upload anything on my computer or whatever, but I took screenshots of the games, of some of the games I played, the ones that really stood out to me, and we'll post some screenshots when we do the post on Instagram at Odd Drunk Pod. Anyways,
Yeah.
I want to move on to one more movie game. I mentioned it earlier, The Untouchables. Now, this one was a huge swing. It definitely impressed me on the technical level. The music's good. It's groovy, kind of spy music. And, it's the Untouchables game. And it has images of like Kevin Costner and like the guy that played Al Capone and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I don't think we played a game yet that has those kind of textures in it yet.
Robert De Niro.
Pictures. Robert De Niro, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, he was Al Capone?
I think so. Let's see. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
I know
yeah.
he's Tony.
Yeah, Robert De Niro.
Wow. Oh, wow. I can't believe I forgot that.
And
Anyways.
Sean Connery is Jim Malone.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's been a long time since I've seen that. Yeah.
Sean Connery. Anyways. And the the graphics, really cool. Depth to the backgrounds, you're like fighting an alley, and it's a cover shooter. It's literally a cover shooter, like arcade style cover shooter, but 16-bit graphics.
Damn.
And it's definitely impressive, definitely groundbreaking. Did not play well. Played incredibly slow, awkward, weird. Like when you aim, it doesn't do like it. I just wish it would have done like an auto aim thing or something. But like when you aim, first you have to reload every time, and then when you aim, you move the cursor around, and it's very slow.
I mean, this was an era where there were a lot of attempts to port kind of arcade games and arcade style games.
Yeah, that's what it had to feel, and it's maybe there is an arcade version of it, and I just didn't play it. But I played the NES version, and imagine Duck Hunt, but it's a cover shooter, and you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly hard. You got bad guys throwing TNT at you and barrels exploding, and Kevin Costner dies instantly whenever that happens. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I imagine Kevin Costner would if that happened.
Yeah.
Maybe not. He is Kevin Costner. Anyways, that's the last like movie
before,
one.
Before we get into any big games, there's one I want to mention because we talked about it in our 1991 games, but the original arcade version came out this year. Was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which
I was about to talk about that.
When it was ported to the NES as Turtles in Time.
And Turtles in Time came out in '89.
The arcade cabinet,
the arcade version. I played the first Ninja Turtles arcade game.
So the Ninja Turtle game, there was a Ninja Turtles game came out on the NES this year.
I played that one too.
Different one.
I own it.
The arcade Ninja Turtles game was the one that became Turtles in Time.
That
when they were tasked to port it to the NES, they made Turtles in Time
instead of just a straight port.
Yeah, but it's a very similar game.
No, I played it. Well, I played the just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, not Turtles in Time.
Yeah,
but I played plenty of Turtles in Time too, of course, because it's an absolute classic banger. Yeah. And so is this one.
I mean, Turtles in Time
original arcade game.
Realistically, more like a sequel, but like,
yeah. Well, it's the fourth.
Yeah.
In the series, I think, but the NES one counts as part of that. I forget.
It's weird. Yeah.
The NES one. So yeah, obviously the arcade one is an absolutely just classic banger, beat 'em up, co-op game. Great sprites, animations, music. I mean, the music's crisp. It's very crisp because it's the arcade version. You get people speaking, which is fun. Yeah, absolutely great. Beat 'em up. I mean, one of the classics. I mean, timeless. I mean, beat 'em ups like that, just timeless. And fighters, and the Ninja Turtle games continue to impress. But yeah, the NES version, I had fun with it. It's definitely very Castlevania, but you're moving around on a map like Mario. Each of the turtles have different abilities, gameplay mechanics, slightly. I mean, it's hard,
it's difficult game.
And it's all about skill, timing, and strategy.
It can be a frustrating game at times.
It definitely can be frustrating, but also it's rewarding. Like when I first fought. Who was the first boss? Bebop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of Ninja Turtles, a side tangent. I saw the new Ninja Turtles movie.
How was that?
Produced by Seth Rogen, and great. It's a ton of fun. Easily, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen the original '90s ones.
Yeah,
but easily, honestly, in my opinion, like the best Ninja Turtles movie. It's just the art style is great. It definitely reminds you of the Mirage comics of the era, of the 80s and 90s. And it's just fun. And they're played by real, kids, teenagers, like young teenagers, 13, 14, 15, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's fun. There's good celebrity cameos. Ice Cube is Superfly. Seth Rogen's the Rocksteady. But he doesn't do his typical Seth Rogen voice, which I found very refreshing. He didn't do the laugh once that I know of. But no, it's just cool vibe. Obviously inspired, like these kinds of movies with, artistic stylings is definitely inspired by Spider-Verse, but it's not any worse for it. It's just part of this era, and it's a real fun movie. There's even references to the games. There's action sequences where they do like side-scrolling beat 'em ups.
Oh, cool!
They fall into sewers and stuff like the game, and like they get the pizza power-ups, which is pretty cool. It's not like a video game version of them, but it definitely makes references to that. It pays tribute. But yeah, great movie, by the way. But yeah, the Ninja Turtle games, the NES version, yeah, can be quite clunky and frustrating, but it's charming. I mean, it's Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles for crying out loud. Um, it's hard to make that unamusing. It's definitely amusing, but the arcade version, huge standout. Definitely gives this year even more points. Um, it- what do you want to talk about next? We're done with the. Unless you have anything else, I'm done with the licensed stuff.
I don't think there's any other licensed ones off the top of my head.
There's probably other ones, but we can't play them all.
There's a few that I didn't get to play that are important.
Okay, tell me about it.
So Populous
Maybe I
came
I
out
didn't play
this
it.
I don't know if it's his first game, but it's the first big hit from Peter Molyneux. Uh
Okay, give me a reminder.
he's the
'Cause
guy
I'll look
who
him up.
did Fable, who
Oh,
is notorious for way over promising on games.
yeah.
And so Populous kind of kicked off his career as a game developer. It was his first big hit. And
Okay.
it it's I mean some people think it's still maybe his best game. Like it was all downhill from there. Um one game I played a lot in the past when I was a kid, did not get to play it for this. Sim City came out in
I
89.
played a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, City. That yeah, incredibly groundbreaking. I mean, it started that. I mean, was it the first of that genre?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was. And
It started the city building sim. I mean, it's Sim City, the original, and I played a bit of it. My ROM, however, that I acquired, let's just put it that way, was the Japanese version. So I couldn't, and it's a very instruction heavy game. So
yeah.
it took me a little while to figure out all the controls and what everything does, but I built me a little city with an airport, a couple industrial zones, and some homes, and it not only the first city builder simulation game, but one of the first like just relax and chill games of the era.
Yeah, it was
Just like
definitely.
just sit back and you could spend hours on it, making your city and just chilling out, vibing to the
Yeah.
music.
Um
Um,
I played this a lot as a
not a
kid.
l-
This and the sequel SimCity 2000, which was I don't remember what year that came out. 91, 92, something like that. Um
yeah, I think we covered it.
but this is I mean it's a fun
Our-
game. As a kid, I did a lot of the just you build a city and then destroy it with a big monster because you can do that in this game.
we can get a monster in this one.
Yeah, you can have like natural disasters happen and they destroy the
Oh
city. And
yeah, and
one
that's
of
in
them is
every
like
sim.
one of them is like a big kaiju. And on the NES version, it's Bowser,
Oh yeah.
which is fun.
Oh, I gotta play it again. I want to see Bowser destroy my city that I worked so hard on.
yeah,
But yeah, absolutely groundbreaking. You know, gives even more points to this. I mean, telling you, we just got started on this year. Honestly, like
hmm
it. Yeah, some of the movie tie-in stuff. That yeah, Ninja Turtles is good, Batman is good, but like we're just getting started.
yeah.
Um,
Another game I didn't get to play because it's a big game to get into. Final
okay.
Fantasy Legend.
Yeah, I didn't
On
play
the
either
Game
of the
Boy.
Final Fantasy
It's
releases.
well, this is the only main Final Fantasy that actually came out this year.
I thought two came out.
No. Uh this is, from my understanding, it's the first Final Fantasy game that was released in North America under the name Final Fantasy.
Oh, yeah, it did
Like,
have a different name. It was
um, because in the early days of Final Fantasy, the North American releases were always like different from the Japanese releases.
Right. Yeah, there's
I
a
could
lot
be
of games
wrong
like that,
wrong
actually.
about that, but I think so that was a big game, but I didn't play it.
No, I'm gonna be quite honest with you. I didn't play the Final Fantasies. I'm too busy playing, well, these other games, but also the new Final Fantasy. Quick
Yeah.
update on that. Um, Final Fantasy 16. Yeah, love the gameplay. It's getting even better and funner with the new abilities and all that. The story, it's like Game of Thrones. You heard my other review, you know, slavery, gore, sexual intrigue, political
Yeah.
intrigue, that kind of thing. Um, good stuff. Um, but like I played the hell out of it. Well, I mean, not like I haven't like put 8 hours a day or whatever, but I put an hour or two a day. And for the last few weeks, and I've barely moved in the story. I finally like got past what I essentially consider the prologue because I
Yeah.
just got to the next level, which is 5 years later, and everything else felt like a prologue to that, the way
Yeah.
it's presenting it. So definitely long, definitely a lot of cutscenes, but it's very rewarding. And honestly, it's entertaining to watch the cutscenes. And Final Fantasy usually does a great job of just making a fun game that's also like basically its own little TV show,
Yeah.
and it's good stuff. Anyways, any other Final Fantasy games you would talk? Those are the only ones, right?
No,
Legends.
yeah. Final
That's the
Fantasy
only one.
Legends.
I would like to talk about before I get to one of my favorite NES game of this year. I'm going to talk about my second favorite one. So
Right.
close to be my favorite one, but that other one just beat it out a little. Anyways, DuckTales, 1989.
Yeah.
Walt Disney budget, and it shows. It's the sprites are fun. You're playing a Scrooge McDuck, and you're saving the other ducks, and uh, it definitely fun sprites. It's got that cartoon vibe to it on the NES, and they definitely went the extra mile there. Gameplay is the standout here.
Yeah.
The pogo stick gameplay, just bouncing from enemy to enemy and breaking stuff open, that kind of thing. Ton of fun. It inspired Shovel Knight,
Yeah.
which is one of my favorite games ever. Maybe. I mean, for retro, like modern retro games, which is a thing now, where like a lot of indie developers make a 16-bit game
Yeah.
with modern mechanics, that kind of thing. But yeah, DuckTales, ton of fun. I think the only thing it lacks in is soundtrack. I think the soundtrack, it has iconic themes, especially the moon theme. I've heard it in video essays. I swear to God.
Yeah.
But the quality is lacking,
Yeah.
which makes sense
fair
because
enough.
they put more processing power into the
I was
graphics
gonna
and
question
gameplay.
why you're saying it's lacking on the soundtrack. 'Cause I'm like, the soundtrack's pretty iconic for
It's just the quality.
right. No, that
It's a
does
little
make
lacking.
yeah.
But that's like my only negative thing to really say about it.
Yeah.
And it's not overly difficult either. Like it's fun. It's a fun game. You have anything to say about it aside
I
from
think
what
you
I
said it
said?
all pretty much. I mean, it's got a good it's a good amount of challenge, but it's very accessible. So
Mhm.
it strikes that balance pretty well.
What happened to all my notes? Anyways, the last NES game I want to talk about is Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. If you have any other NES games, go for it, and then we'll get into that one because that's the last one I played.
There is Baseball Stars on the NES.
Okay.
Played a bit of that. It's
All right.
decent. At the time it was considered like one of the best baseball video games. It's fun. I mean, it's kind of it takes some getting used to. Um,
Who developed it?
I don't remember. Let me check.
I can look it up.
Yeah, I got it here. SNK.
Okay.
So
Um, so I can kind of expect
they,
like what that would look like.
yeah, and SNK. Well, they later on the Neo Geo did a new like another version of the game, which has like the SNK like kind of signature style like graphics and stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, I those like Metal Gear Slug, not Metal
Yeah,
Gear, but Metal Slug graphics.
but
I know exactly what. Yeah.
the original was a lot more, NES, I guess. I don't know if that's the way to describe
Okay.
it.
So more colors, simple.
Yeah, very simple. Um, but it's a good game. Very simple controls.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you play as just like red team, blue team, or do you get to play as the Yankees and the Cubs and
They don't have any
like
licensed
teams?
teams
No
in it.
licensed teams. Okay.
Um, they do have like player names that are obviously like based off of real players.
Oh, I see.
So like Sandy. So that'd be like Sandy Koufax. Um,
Okay. Okay.
but so they tried to sneak in some recognizable stuff, but nothing was licensed.
Okay. Well, no, that's understandable. Um, before I go on to Castlevania, there's a couple games I didn't play a whole lot of, and I don't think I can fairly say something about it, but some Sega Genesis games. Um, Golden Axe. I played a bit, and it's a definitely one of the more interesting beat 'em ups I played. You select different abilities at the beginning. It's kind of got that Neo Geo graphic style to it, even though it's earlier, than that.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea. It's a sluggish, too sluggish for beat 'em up. But I see what it was doing. It was trying to have more like depth to it. It wasn't just like a side scroller, um, and like kind of RPG elements. But aside from that, I mean, yeah, I mean, essentially, it was the first hack and slash.
Yeah.
Um, which is definitely important, and I'm not discrediting it, but it's just it didn't work with me. Another one that didn't really work with me was Shadow of the Beast. It's a little bit more fun to play, but again, slow and sluggish. And when it's slow and sluggish, I don't really enjoy it. It has to have a good. I think all these games, all these early 2D 16-bit, 8-bit games, they have to have a good flow to them
Yeah.
to
Um,
work. If it,
I mean,
I don't know.
a big game that I tried that was kind of like that I couldn't get into. Altered Beast
Yeah,
came out in '89, and I can't get into Altered Beast.
definitely
I
slow,
think it's really
sluggish.
sluggish. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just awkward. And when a game is awkward to play, it's not going to be
and
enjoyable. But I
I
know it's got
know,
its fans.
yeah, and I also
So
know that it is a port of an arcade cabinet game. So
right, and that's a different,
I
experience.
assume it plays differently on the arcade, but I've also heard that the the port is a pretty respectable port as far as
Right.
for the
So then
time.
we just don't like the game really.
Yeah.
Um another game I didn't get to play for this session, for this recording. Um Earthbound Beginning, also known in Japan as
Right.
Mother.
Yeah.
I've only played Earthbound, which is
Uh-huh.
technically Mother 2 in Japan.
Yeah.
Um, and I haven't played enough Earthbound. I've played its uh, spiritual successor, Undertale, which was huge. A few years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
Uh-huh.
whenever it was huge, 2015. I don't know, but I need to play more Earthbound. It's definitely a charming game. It's I mean it's basically Dragon Quest, but it's like the 80s. Um and then it also has the most horrifying boss known to
Yeah.
gaming. What's its name? It's like the fetus and it looks like a monster.
Yeah. I don't remember what it's called.
Let me look it up. It's like Gygus or
Something like that.
Earthbound scary. Earthbound's legit can get scary, by the way, if for everyone listening. Yeah,
Yeah.
Gygus. Because the whole game is like an analogy for the fear of pregnancy and stuff, and like, yeah, it gets weird. Definitely
It
gets
is
weird.
it
But
is a
great game.
weird game, yeah.
Definitely
Um,
a groundbreaking, incredibly important RPG, and just
yeah. The Earthbound Beginnings is available on the Nintendo Switch Online now.
nice, nice.
I don't know when they added that, but relatively recently, I think it was.
I might just check it out there. It'd be easier than trying to
Yeah.
find a good ROM for it.
Right.
If there's the way I look at it with my emulator, yeah, I love playing it and everything. But if there's an official version, I will play the official version.
Yeah.
It's like Nintendo, we will give you so much money to just play the official versions of your classic old games,
Yeah.
your NES and SNES games and everything, and etc. But you make it so hard to find those versions that we have to go to emulation, that we have to go to ROMs.
And like
Because
the
I'm telling you, Nintendo, we will pay for it. We will
Yeah.
pay for it.
and like the Nintendo
So-
Switch online thing is great, but what's gonna
That's a
happen?
decent selection.
Yeah, but what's gonna happen when
Well,
they
a
stop
limited selection. but-
supporting the Nintendo Switch online in the future? Like,
Right, and they will.
Yeah.
Nintendo has done that with every eShop they've made for their games.
Yeah.
They always drop it. Nintendo, you make amazing content, great games, classic games, but your policy against your fans is very antagonistic, and you force us into a corner where we pirate your games. To be quite frank with you, Nintendo, love you, but also kind of hate you
yeah.
for that reason. Anyways, yeah, good stuff. The last NES title I want to talk about here is Castlevania 3.
hmm
Absolutely loved it. Castlevania always hits. It always works. It's always good.
Yeah.
Every Castlevania we played so
You-
far.
Even kind of the lesser Castlevania games are still have something.
Even the lesser
to
ones
offer.
are still good.
um,
I played a lot of different Castlevania games recently, and it's funny that I know they've done a couple 3D attempts and like God of War likes and stuff, I think, and then they did like a callback one. I think Symphony of it was like a callback to the Harmony of Despair, but I forget what it was called, but
yeah.
Castlevania's kind of non-existent now as a IP. I know the the Netflix series is great. I love it. It's a pretty cool anime, Western anime, and it's just interesting that Castlevania in this era, in the 80s and 90s, was the king. I mean, one of the kings of gaming. Konami, what are you doing? You're
Yeah.
mostly doing mobile game stuff and like casino games. I get it. You're faded out, but if you came out with a banger Castlevania game, you could just do like a 2D one.
Yeah.
People would they
Take
would buy that.
after learn from Metroid Dread what Nintendo did with that.
Yeah, just do a classic like Castlevania game with modern graphics,
Yeah.
or even stylized graphics,
No, it seems like most of the
or
time
just make a
Castlevania-
16-bit one. I mean, geez,
Castlevania ends up being just like retro collections and things like that that they re-release, and that's
Yeah, and that's
kind of
easy
it.
enough. You can keep re-releasing your old games, your ancient games, because they're great.
Yeah,
Castlevania 3, I love the color palette here. You know, it's very Technicolor, very Halloweeny. Obviously, it's Castlevania, but it's extra in this one. There's a lot of bright greens and purples, and it's
yeah.
just a very fun looking game. It's fun to look at. It's I had a huge smile on my face the whole time playing, no matter how frustrating it got, especially the Medusa heads. But you know, like the introduction, how it's like a film reel and stuff, great stuff. Um, the music here is absolutely banger in my opinion.
Yeah,
It like the first level is a derivation of the original Castlevania theme in a very satisfying way. It has great new original music, so that definitely helps. And honestly, like I said earlier, these games really need a good flow to the gameplay, and this just hits it. Just like great gameplay flow.
it's
You know,
definitely the best
it's
of the NES Castlevania games.
oh definitely.
And
And that's
th-
not discrediting the other ones, but this one's
no,
just
it is a shame that
it just makes
the
sense.
NES games, and this one included, do get overshadowed by the SNES.
By Super Castlevania and by the
Yeah,
PS1 Harmony of Despair, you know.
Symphony of the
But
Night.
Symphony of the Night, yes.
Yeah,
One of that when we get to that year, we'll definitely talk about it. Whatever year it came out, like 92? No. 4? 5. I don't know.
so I don't know.
Mid 90s ish. But this one, yeah, definitely the best NES Castlevania. And if it had diagonal aiming, I swear to God, it would be on par. Aside from pixel detail, it'd be on
97.
par with Super. It'd be oh nice.
Yeah.
It'd be my birth year. It'd be on par with Super Castlevania. Honestly, if it had diagonal aiming, and
Yeah, that's
it would. But it's an absolutely banger game. I almost put DuckTales above it just because I think it's it's more it's not an original IP, but it's the first of it that series, and the gameplay is fun and innovative. But damn, Castlevania just knows how to do it. Konami knew how to do it
yeah,
back then.
yeah.
Just a
These,
banger, absolutely banger game. Uh,
I mean,
what more could you ask
it's just
for this
baffling to
era?
me that there's this and Metroid's coming back a little bit, but for a while, Metroid didn't exist really outside of handhelds.
Oh, after Prime, I mean, Metroid.
Like,
After the Prime trilogy, Metroid went away for a
yeah.
while. It
So it's baffling to me
practically
that you
died.
have these two franchises that have an entire genre named
Metroidvania. I
named
mean,
after them. For a long time, really went away, and Castlevania hasn't really come back much.
no. The only recent Castlevania thing I would really recommend that I played is a Doom mod.
Yeah,
First
yeah.
person
You showed me
Castlevania.
that. Yeah,
It's a recreation. I believe it's a recreation of it's a Super Castlevania recreation, but come on. I mean, give us something. But anyways, yeah. That's my favorite NES game of this year. Not my favorite game of the year though.
yeah.
At least not the most impressive game of the year. Uh the next one I want to talk about, this is neither from SNES or NES. Well, it would be ported to SNES. Prince of Persia on the
I
Macintosh on
Yeah, I was
Apple.
hoping that you would bring that up soon.
Of course. Of course I would.
It's a
I
super cool
hope you
game.
would have if I forgot. But
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a super cool game. I mean,
it's I wrote this in my notes that it feels more like an art piece than it is a game
yeah.
because honestly, I'm bad at it.
Oh, it's
It's not
brutal.
my favorite gameplay.
Yeah,
However, I don't care. it's so smooth and the depth, like it's almost 2.5D in the
Yeah.
16-bit era, and it has rotoscoping, which is pretty much proto motion capture
Yeah,
in a video
the
game.
rotoscoping animation
It's
is
so
so
smooth.
good. It does a really good
Uh,
job like making you feel really cool when you get past a puzzle.
yes, it's
Um
parkour.
this
It's,
yeah,
I mean, damn, it's so Prince of Persia eventually brought us Assassin's Creed because that was
uh-huh,
a Prince of Persia spin-off, and then they just made it its own game.
yeah,
If it wasn't for this, we might not have the platformers that we have now,
uh-huh.
parkour platformers with smooth animations, and like everything you do is its own animation. And this
It's
was like the start of
the
that.
idea of a cinematic platformer.
A cinematic platform. Exactly.
Yeah,
This is the great granddaddy
where it's
of Assassin's Creed.
the idea of instead of mechanical like do whatever you want type of depth, it's make you feel cool
Exactly. And
type
so
of
many
depth.
games, now it's at this point with games, you got to strike a balance between make you feel cool and have good gameplay. And Assassin's Creed often fails to strike that balance. Sometimes it goes too far into you look cool with the parkour animations like with Unity, but the gameplay is kind of weak. Even free flow combat, Arkham and style. Or it's very weak parkour, but it's got good gameplay with the more RPG centric Assassin's Creed games. So many games have to strike that balance now. And this is one of the earliest games to create that dilemma between animation, feeling cool, and gameplay. And I think
Yeah,
it's just a little bit weak on the gameplay part, maybe just because it's a skill issue. But aside from that, huge game, uh, revolutionary. I
yeah.
mean,
One detail in this that I don't think I ever noticed before um is that so Prince of Persia, some of the plot elements in it are loosely, and I say very loosely, based off of a book of 1001 Nights.
oh yeah,
Which is also what Disney's Aladdin was extremely loosely based on. So you have some funny similarities of these two. This game that came out just a few years before the movie of the villain in Prince of Persia is named Jafar.
oh really?
Yeah.
No, it's very
And
Aladdin.
yeah. Uh
And it's very, in fact, the Aladdin game took a lot from this, even though it was more of a platformer. And there was
yeah.
another game in '91. I forget what it was called, but it was a very like artistic like platformer.
Yeah,
You can
the because of the
whatever it
plot of
was.
Prince of Persia, it's the vizier Jafar. He's a wizard. He wants the throne, so he tries to force the princess to marry him. That's
Mhm.
the plot, and then you that's kind of like the plot of Aladdin.
Um, and yeah, Jordan Mechner created it, or Mechner, I don't know how you pronounce his name, and it was originally Brotherbund developing software, founded in 1980. Went defunct in '98, and then Ubisoft acquired Prince of Persia IP and made the reboot Sands of Time,
Yeah,
and that's when it went to the 3D era proper. Well, they had Prince of Persia 3D '99, but I think when Ubisoft took over, that's when it really ushered in this kind of platformer. This
yeah.
you know So yeah, incredibly important game, incredibly impressive game. Not my favorite one to play, but definitely a great one to look at, and I
It's a
definitely want to
cool
look at some.
experience.
It's a cool experience.
Yeah.
I want to look at people play it. I want to watch good people at this game play this game. Oh, the dog and the cat are getting in a little bit of an argument over there. Anyways, We have a dog now. It's a long-haired Chihuahua. Her name's Coco. That was the name she was given when we adopted her.
Nice.
Roshi decided to keep that name. They're doing okay. They coexist, but the cat is still definitely not ready for any kind of playtime or
Yeah.
touching or coming near her space, which I understand. Anyways, Prince of Persia, amazing. I mean, I don't have much else to say about it. Like I said, feels like an art piece more than it does a game, but that's not a bad thing here. It broke into the cinematic gameplay, which
I mean, it's still I found like lists online of like ranking the Prince of Persia games, like all of them, and it's pretty consistently put in like the top 3.
yeah, honestly, I
The
mean,
original one.
to be honest, it's maybe just a skill issue. I find it a little difficult. If I give it more time, I might
It's
like
well, I mean,
appreciate the gameplay
it
more.
is notoriously also a very brutally difficult game.
It's all about timing, and it's not definitely not your typical platformer. And it's what broke the mold for platformers.
Yeah.
Um, you have any other game to talk about? That pretty much sums up my list.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about there's not a whole lot to say, but a little bit about Super Mario Land.
Of course.
It's a cool game. It's the first appearance of Princess Daisy in a Super Mario game.
Oh, really?
Because Peach is not in it.
It's Princess Daisy.
And neither is Bowser. There's no Bowser. So this was not developed by Nintendo.
Really?
So there's some weird stuff in it, and there's one level.
When has that happened?
This probably it's got to be like one of the only times they've ever.
I guess when Square Enix did Legend of Seven Stars.
Yeah,
That's like the other
but
one I
in the
can
early
think of.
days of like the Game Boy, there were games that Nintendo handed off. So like it's not 1989, but Link's Awakening was not developed by Nintendo, was developed by Capcom.
Whoa.
So there's some weird like
Capcom.
stuff. I think it was Capcom. I need to double check that.
That doesn't really seem like. Well, I guess Capcom did a lot of games like that. But when I think Capcom, I think just classic fighters. But yeah.
But like the result is
One Resident Evil, of course.
Yeah. Well, the result with Super Mario Land is there's some weird stuff. So like you don't have a fireball. You have like this if like you kind of have a fireball, but it like bounces around. So you fire off one and it'll bounce around the map.
Oh yeah, that's introduced in a lot of modern Mario games.
So you don't have the traditional fireball that just like bounces forward. Like you fire off one and it'll bounce around off walls.
Bounce off a wall.
There is an on rails shooter segment.
Is there?
Yeah, you get into a submarine.
I haven't played enough.
You get into a submarine and it's an auto scroller shooter. And you fire missiles. Yeah. It's just one level in the entire game. Comes out of nowhere.
No, it doesn't repeat that mechanic ever.
It doesn't repeat that mechanic at all. It's just one level, which is wild.
Maybe they just had the budget to do it once. Like, let's try this thing out.
And there's just like it's fun because it's a Super Mario game that kind of takes place in our world, sort of. So because the idea is Mario's traveling around the world.
So it's like Odyssey.
Yeah. So there's 4 different worlds. First one is like ancient Egypt. Second one
in that world
is like an ocean themed. I don't remember.
Mm,
Then there's um Easter Island, and then there's like feudal Japan.
wow.
Yeah, and all the bosses are themed. So like the first boss is like a
Feudal
sphinx.
Japan.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah,
which
I gotta
is
play that
yeah,
more. I honestly do.
it's pretty fun.
That
Yeah.
that's the
Uh,
only like Mario game of that era I haven't given enough time to.
I mean, there's 12 levels in total.
Makes
So,
sense. Game Boy.
um, it can be challenging at times. It's not,
I
so
like it.
it's,
I like that.
you'd have to start over, but with the magic of emulation, you can make save states.
Rewind. Save
Uh,
states, rewinds, all that jazz.
there's also, there's not much to say about this one, but it came out this year and it is one of my favorite games. Minesweeper came out in '89.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Minesweeper.
there's nothing to say about Minesweeper. It's you
You
know
know
what
what
it
it is.
is. It's
We've all
Minesweeper.
played it when we were kids, bored on our
Yeah.
dad's computer, you know,
And
and we
I a few years ago downloaded a version of it on my phone and it's has sucked away many hours of my life because I play a lot of Minesweeper.
it's it's the predecessor to 2048.
Yeah. I mean it's good. It takes some like it's one of those games you have to it's I wouldn't say it's necessarily that hard once you kind of get the hang of it because you learn certain patterns and all that sort of stuff. And it's
Mm,
ultimately it's a logic game.
it's math.
uh no, it's not really math, it's logic. Don't let the numbers fool you.
But it
um
feels like I'm doing math, and
yeah,
I
don't let the numbers fool you because basically the game, like what you're doing, you're not doing math, you're looking at it and saying okay,
patterns.
yeah, it's patterns and logic. So you're looking at it and you're
Yeah,
going, okay, well there has to be two mines here and there's three spots, so this one can't be a mine,
go in
which
the
means these
spot, go
two are.
diagonally, go up.
um but you also learn patterns, and it's just, I wouldn't say it's like a super hard game or anything, but you have to like go out of your
When
way to learn how to play it.
when I was a kid, I was afraid I was gonna like give my dad's computer a virus from playing Minesweeper. Like if I messed up, I
Oh.
was like, oh my God, I'm gonna like blow up his computer or like do something wrong.
Yeah.
It's like at the time, Minesweeper felt like code.
So I've it's kind of funny you should say that because a while back I was playing it on my phone and there's a guy I know at one of the bars who does coding like for his job, and he saw me playing that
Yeah.
and he's like,
Well,
he's like, that's
okay.
essentially what I do at work. He's like coding is like Minesweeper is kind of, I mean it's
Coding?
not coding, but like the type, when I say it's a it's not a math game, it's a logic game.
Yeah.
That's what I
Looking for
mean. Like
the
coding ultimately
reasonable.
is logic.
Yeah.
Like if you get into coding, you had like if you got a degree and you were learning coding, you would probably have to take a logic course.
I've wanted, I honestly, if I went to get another degree, it'd be in coding.
Yeah. That way you can
A
be a hacker
computer
man. You
science
can
degree.
hack
Yeah,
yourself
hacker
back in
man.
time.
And so I can make mods for
Yeah.
myself.
And you can time travel.
Yeah, of course. Well,
Yeah.
that's coding 101. You time travel, you can hack into the government.
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't say anything, government.
Um, I also want to talk
Um,
about, I know this isn't the original version, didn't come out in '89, but the Game Boy version did, and it's probably the biggest, most well-known version. Tetris is kind of a big
of
deal of a
course.
game.
Well, it
Um,
really, I mean, it's the highest selling game of all time still.
yeah, it's one of them. It's up there. I don't remember.
Obviously huge in Soviet Russia. That's where
It's
it was
kind
born
of
and bred. But
it's kind of an interesting story how it came around because like the
isn't there a movie about it
I don't know.
with the guy from The Kingsman?
Which guy?
The main one, the younger one.
Oh, Taron Egerton.
Taron Elgerton or Egerton
Egerton or some
Edgerton.
Ed
Some British
Taron
name.
Edgy Team.
Tagger Edgy Fart. I don't know.
Tagger Edgy Fart.
Anyways, yeah, he's in it. There's a movie about it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because the story. So they created the game and it pretty quickly became like this game that all these publishers wanted the rights to, but officially no one had actually bought the rights. It was just a bunch of companies claiming they had the rights for a while.
Yeah, and I think Tagger Egerton's character is like the guy that sold it to Nintendo.
Yeah, so finally what happened is Nintendo actually sent a person to the Soviet Union to negotiate the rights.
Egerton.
Yeah. And they negotiated the rights. And another company, I don't remember which one it was, got the rights to the arcade version. But
okay.
It
was on the Game Boy.
Yeah.
And then everybody had it.
Yep. And that's what made it big.
Everybody was playing it.
And I mean, you still see people online who are like
Tetris. I want to get into it. I played it a little bit. Fortnite, that's for scrubs. It's all about Tetris Battle Royale. They have it.
Yeah.
Tetris and you 99. See how long you can keep. Yeah. And you keep Tetrising until the last person.
Yeah. It's kind of fun.
A very nerd version of Fortnite, but still Tetris. Such a simple concept. Turning around shapes, they're coming down. You match them.
I mean, I think it might be one of the
most genius
games ever created.
Never.
Because of its simplicity.
But we're not gonna give it too many points for this year because the original Tetris didn't come out this year.
Yeah, technically.
So I'm not gonna let that. But it's definitely important that we got the Game Boy version. But I don't want that to.
Is the version I've played the most of. And
I think it's the version most people have played.
If you go online, there's onto Reddit, the Tetris Reddit and stuff like that. Some people will still say that the Game Boy version is their favorite,
superior version, and whatever.
I went through a period a couple years ago where I played the shit out of Tetris for
it's addicting
for a few months.
It's the first I mean, especially when it came out on Game Boy, it's the first mobile game. The first just addicting, easy to learn, hard to master game. Yeah. And it has that addicting factor to it. It has that you just keep going, you find new tricks, and then there's all kinds of games that wouldn't exist without Tetris. Like Candy Crusher, whatever's, all those bad mobile games. And that kind of might take some points away from Tetris because it created that kind of game. Because a lot of them aren't as smart, as Tetris or, intuitive, but definitely massively important. I mean, yeah, Tetris. Enough said. Right. Yep. Anyways, I think is that everything we want to say about this year? Is there any games that we're missing here?
Final Fight came out in '89.
Did you play it?
No.
I didn't.
We have to mention I played a tiny bit, but it's such a massive game. Let
me guess, we missed a huge one.
Yeah, there's a huge one in here that I mean, it's
impressive. Say it, I'm gonna freak out.
It's impressive because this is for the time, this is a 20 to 40 hour game. Phantasy Star 2.
Yes, I actually did intend on playing that, but
I played a little bit of it, but not nearly enough to talk about it. So,
tell me about what you played.
I just played the intro. There's some. what's cool about this right from the get-go is it's got a really cool the sci-fi setting in it is really cool. It's very like very 80s. Like the main character has like a headband with like hair flowing over. It's super 80s, but the entire
Nice.
like idea of it
Like
is
Kung Fury.
like you're yeah, exactly, like that entire thing. But it's like you're like a government agent in this like
Okay.
utopia and this utopia is run by this thing called the mother brain, which is like this AI. It just handles everything, but the mother brain's been kind of freaking out a little bit, so you have to go investigate. And
Sounds familiar, right?
yeah, and
Anyways.
it's what makes it I just read up a little bit about it before we recorded, and it's supposed to be an important game because it's one of the first RPGs to really take its plot seriously.
Okay.
Before
Is that to its own benefit?
apparently. Again, I did not get enough into it because it's, I mean,
But it's an honorable mention.
Yeah, honorable mention. Like we have to bring it up.
We have to.
I mean,
yeah.
It also
no, I mean
for the time it's it is like a 20 to 40 hour game depending on.
Yeah, I mean any RPG, no matter the era. I mean, you have to put a lot of time into it. And been busy.
That's the same reason why I didn't get into
think,
Final Fantasy Legends, because I mean it's not as long of a game, but it's from my understanding, it's a very unforgiving game, and it can be very grindy.
Right. Welcome to Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But
I think we should wrap this up. I think we've talked about everything that we played and that we want to talk about that matters.
Yeah.
Huge year.
Think
this year shocked me. This year surprised me. It shocked me. It shooketh me. But something happened. Don't worry about it. But anyways, off screen. I was inclined to give this an A before I played some of these games. Before I played Prince of Persia, Castlevania 3, DuckTales, SimCity, honestly, it's so groundbreaking.
Yeah. This is a tough one.
TMT arcade game.
This is a really tough one to rank.
It's right in between an A and an S for me. It's very close to an S. You would have to think it's an S for it to be an S.
I'm inclined to say it's an A simply because is it on the same level as a year like 91?
Okay, let's go back to 91. Because that's our only
that's our
only S tier so far.
Yeah,
out of the years we've covered.
And it's kind of, so 91, here we go. Street Fighter 2, Sonic the Hedgehog, A Link to the Past.
That's a huge game. Super Mario World,
Super Castlevania 4, Turtles in Time, Duke Nukem, Metroid
God.
2.
I mean, Duke Nukem, who cares?
Streets of Rage, Another World,
Street Fighter 2,
Final Fantasy Adventure.
F-Zero,
Monkey Island 2, F-Zero.
Oh, and that's a revolutionary point and click.
Super Mario World.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think what 91 actually lacks compared to 89 is the groundbreaking factor.
Fair enough.
These are all banger games, and we have new mascots, new franchise. We had First Civilization, which I guess that's also groundbreaking. What
I'll say about 89 is it's a year where some games are moving on to the 16-bit, some games are still in 8-bit, and it's
pushing the limits of the 8-bit.
It's
on some of these games.
You have game developers who have been working with this technology for a bit now and are either pushing
They
that
know the
technology to
workarounds,
its
or they
limits,
know.
or are finding that they can't work with this technology at all anymore. That's
They go to 16-bit.
Fantasy Star 2 started as a Mega Drive game,
8-bit.
8-bit, and was pushed to be Game Gear.
Okay.
Because they were like, we can't do this on 8-bit.
I'm leaning towards an S. Yeah, there was a lot of bummer kind of mediocre movie tie-ins, Friday the 13th, Ghostbusters 2. But then you have bangers like the TMNT arcade game, Castlevania 3, Prince of Persia, DuckTales, I mean, Earthbound, Beginnings. But then,
I mean,
yeah, you
this
have a
is
lot of mid
also-
games here, but then you have such big SimCity. I mean, come on.
I also feel like
You have
89 has to
groundbreaking
be
stuff.
one of the last years for the arcade cabinet as well. Not that the arcade died out,
arcades
but like
continued on. You had the
what-
X-Men arcade game. You
yeah,
had
but
the
what I
Sims-
mean
or-
what I mean is like for like really iconic arcade games that they're porting over to home consoles and trying to figure that out. In the next
like Pac-Man, Galaga.
Yeah, in the
like
next few years after
early.
89, I think you start to see no, people aren't caring so much about porting arcade games to home consoles.
They're caring about the new greatest thing.
Yeah, home consoles are
About
just moving on from
home
arcade.
consoles, more story-driven games, more graphically demanding games, more gameplay elements. The arcade games of old, though, have lived on. They always will.
I think
big ones.
I think
Pac-Man,
I
Galaga,
would,
Ms. Pac-Man. I mean,
I wouldn't
but
put it.
yeah, it was the end of that era.
I wouldn't put it above 91, but I think I'm gonna agree with you and push it
Equal
to an
terms
S.
of 91.
Yeah,
Or a lower S, lower S tier,
lower S. But I will agree to push it to S tier for one reason, and it's even though we didn't talk about it a ton, the Game Boy is probably one of the most important like consoles.
Oh, if
come
we're
out
talking about consoles,
ever. I mean,
this might be one of the most important years ever. You're right.
Yeah.
This ushered in the portable era.
Yeah.
This ushered in gaming wasn't just for kids. It was for adults
we had
doing
the
business on their commute.
The Genesis / Game Gear.
Hell, I mean, we
come out
want to
this
have
year.
like mobile gaming as we know it.
Yeah.
You know, not just portable gaming, but hell, even other devices that you take with you on your go that entertain you. You know, the cell phone became a streaming device, video device, a video game device.
Yeah.
It can do everything.
People play games on the go on their cell phones, partly because the Game Boy.
The Game Boy was pretty much the first thing that gave you entertainment and just entertainment on the go.
Yeah, I mean, if we're comparing this year to 91, I would kind of push it up.
Yes,
there
you had the SNES
with 91.
I mean,
yeah, the SNES had 91 had iconic, timeless games, but I mean, I'd argue that the Game Boy is a more important console than the SNES was.
The Game Boy brought gaming to everybody.
Yeah.
Console gaming, yes, was huge. And of course, like systems like the Nintendo and SNES out. I don't know if they outsold the Game Boy. I think they did. But
let's find out. Hold on, let me I don't know, because the thing is the Game Boy, if you include the Game Boy Color, and a lot of people do, because the Game Boy Color wasn't really a true sequel console. It was like
Just had colors.
an updated version. It's kind of like the PS4 Pro.
Right.
It was around for like well over a decade. Like 11, 12 years.
Oh yeah.
Which is,
And then you would get
even
the
for
Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. Well, that's the Game Boy Advance came out in 2001. And
Yeah, it was a while
yeah.
before
So
the next like leap in
89 to
generations.
2001. And some of the biggest game franchises of all time started on the Game Boy. It's, you know, later on in its life, but you got like Pokemon.
Yep.
And
not quite yet in this era, but yes.
I don't know. I'm struggling to find the numbers exactly. I don't know what the numbers for the Game Boy were compared to like the SNES, but after the SNES was done and Nintendo moved on to the N64, the Nintendo's lifeblood from that point on, pretty much until the Nintendo Switch, was handhelds.
Oh yeah.
Like,
now listen to that, and they've gone back to it.
I mean,
it's
like
all come
gamers
full
like
circle.
Gamers like us will point to like the importance of the 64 and the GameCube and the Wii and all that sort of stuff, and they were big. But if we're talking pure sales numbers, none of those consoles, except for maybe the Wii, competed with other consoles.
Some stats,
but the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo DS absolutely competed with other consoles. I mean, dominated.
There's people that still play their Game Boys. That still play.
I mean,
their Game Boy Color.
There's also a good reason
Advance.
why, with the exception of the PSP and the PS Vita, which were mildly successful, until basically until the Steam Deck, no other companies could even slightly break into the handheld market.
Well, and what the Steam Deck does, it's a portable gaming device that brings console gaming, PC gaming to your hands.
Yeah.
There's the PSP attempted that. PS Vita definitely attempted that. You have some other like streaming based stuff.
And the Nintendo Switch kind of started that too.
The Switch started to give you console-like experiences portably, but it was the last generation stuff. Now, it's getting to the point where next-gen current games you're able to play them portably.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the Switch kind of opened the doors. It was kind of the point, because I mean, I think it was inevitable it would happen that we would get to a point with gaming, like console technology, that handheld devices would be able to start to compete with home consoles. It was just inevitable to get to that point, and the Switch was
your home console and it's portable.
Yeah.
And
but basically, until that happened with the Switch, and now the Steam Deck and Asus is doing theirs.
PlayStation's rumored to do one.
Yeah. Theirs might be a streaming device that's supposed to link with the PS5 or something. I don't know.
Who cares really? But I can already do that on this.
Yeah.
My Retroid, I can stream.
Yeah. But basically, until the Switch opened the doors for this change that we're seeing right now with stuff like the Steam Deck and the Asus, Nintendo was the handheld market.
Oh yeah,
and it's because the Game Boy worked so well.
Nintendo has essentially dominated the handheld market until the Steam Deck. To be quite honest,
and seriously,
which is impressive.
There have been a lot of attempted. There's been a lot of attempted handhelds, and the only ones, like going back to like 1990.
Yeah,
Sega was trying to do handhelds. Nokia was trying to do handhelds. And out of all of these handhelds that weren't Nintendo, the only one that kind of made a little bit of a dent was PlayStation's.
Yep.
And
that's
even
the only
then,
one that came close.
That was even just a little bit of a dent. Not that much of a dent.
No, yeah, it didn't even
Just
come
enough to
close,
be
let's be real.
remembered, basically.
Anyways, the Game Boy sold more than 118 million units if you combine the Game Boy and Game Boy Color sales.
Oof.
32.4 million units sold in Japan, with 44 million sold in Americas and 42 million sold in the rest of the world. Comparing that to, I guess, the next gen game of this era, the next gen Nintendo system, SNES. Trust me, it still sold quite a lot for a home console, 49 million units, but doesn't even touch the Game Boy.
Damn. Yeah.
I think Nintendo's next highest selling console would be the Wii.
Yeah, Nintendo didn't even come close to the NES sales until they released the Wii.
The Wii, yeah. And the
Yeah.
GameCube, for some reason, kind of
The
dwindled, even
the
though.
GameCube and the N64, while they had like really iconic, like genre defining games, didn't do that well commercially.
No.
Yeah. I mean, that's why they
That's.
developed the Wii, because they needed to switch things up.
And then they made the Switch to switch things up. Ha 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 ha. No pun intended.
Ah,
They switched things up again on us. Are we gonna get a Switch too? Like, what is Nintendo doing next? That's what I'm.
we have to. I mean, they can't keep doing they can't just keep doing the Switch, but they also can't go back to a different type of console at this point. They like whatever they do next has to be like the Switch.
derivation
Yeah.
of the Switch.
It's too late. Like they opened these
Even if
doors.
you call it something different.
Like, yeah,
it has to be.
they opened these doors that allowed like the Steam Deck to happen and stuff like that, but they also made it for themselves. They can't go back now.
They have to kind of catch up. I'm interested. I'm really excited for Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
Yeah.
Which looks like
awesome.
a new proper 2D Mario game, but with a next gen, flair to it
and weird stuff.
Such. Yeah, and I love weird stuff.
That seems to be their whole gimmick because every Mario game has a gimmick, and that seems to be this one's gimmick. Is it's weird.
Yeah.
Which is that looks fun.
They should have just called it Super Mario Brothers Weird.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get on into more tangents,
let's rank this.
Let's rank this S tier.
Is it going to be other? I mean, yeah. I mean, like everything we said before, there's no way we cannot rank this S tier. I don't think there's as many S tier games as 91, but Game Boy alone, and then you have other platforms getting a shine, like the Apple Mac too, and everything like that.
Yeah. We're gonna have to we're gonna have
crossroads.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, with years like this, the later we get into gaming history, the less S tier years they're gonna be when you compare them to these ones, just because these ones were so kind of defining.
We got plenty of defining years coming up.
Yeah.
Plenty, but and also we rank these relative to the year that they are in, and to compare, like, obviously the graphics of Prince of Persia 89 doesn't compare to the graphics of Assassin's Creed Rogue. That's not the point we're making here. For the systems and for the graphics.
It's a weird Assassin's Creed game that for you to have picked for an example.
Isn't that the new one?
Rogue?
Coming out?
No, Rogue was the one they released at the same time as Unity. You play as the Templar. It was the Black Flag sequel.
Like the ice ship one?
Yeah. The you play as an Irish.
The one I never played.
Yeah. It's okay. It's an okay game.
No, but it doesn't look like that game. But that's not the point here. We're ranking these within the context. And also, graphics or not, and I will continue to say this. I've always said this. It's the gameplay that matters. The
Yeah.
flow, the music, if it
I
all
like to
ties together,
think
if it's
about it
enjoyable,
a combination
it's
of
enjoyable to play.
importance of the year, and also how
Importance.
many of these games would I be completely happy to just have and play all the time? And a lot of these
Right.
games, I'd be very happy to just have these games.
Oh, I'm gonna be
Like-
playing retro games all night.
Yeah.
I'm off work tomorrow. Anyways, I think we've gone on long enough. And as we go on with this series, I think, we should get to a point where we reevaluate our rankings.
Yeah, we will have to do that eventually, because if we're too nice to, we're probably going to be too nice to some years and maybe too harsh to others. And in retrospective, we're going to have to adjust that.
Well, it's like, for example, we are going to cover eventually, depending on chance and everything and what we feel like, recent years.
Yeah.
Like early 2020s, the 20 teens. So when we get to years like that, I am naturally going to be more hard on them because I know what they can do. I know what to. I hope you're still recording. I don't know what happened on my end.
We're still recording.
So
I can cut stuff out. Jack, the Zoom call dropped Jackson in the middle of his sentence.
Yeah, just drop me. Anyways, we're gonna be harder on recent years or whatever. But this is S. So far the rankings we have, of course, 89 is an S, 1991 S, 2012 C, very mid-year, like I've said, like we've said.
I didn't
2002
have a lot
A.
of fun covering 2012.
No, and that was our first one. And then 2002 A, which I know it was very close to an S. It just didn't quite make it. But, since we've done 80s, 90s, early teens, early 2000s, maybe we'll do a recent year. That might be interesting.
Maybe. Let's hope it's not like, I don't know.
Like 2019.
Yeah.
2020.
Maybe we'll get 2018.
When did the Elden Ring come out? 2022, right?
Yes.
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
This year would be a good one so far. I mean, we've had some great games this year. Tears of the Kingdom, potential game of the year.
And there's some potential good ones coming out that I'm
Diablo 4. Spider-Man 2 is coming out. We've got Baldur's Gate 3. We've got Final Fantasy 16.
Just came out, and the reviews are pouring in, and they're saying this is a genre redefining game.
Yeah. That same thing has been said about multiple games.
So
this is a great year for games, and maybe next year we might cover it, but we can't legally cover a year that we are living in. It has to be in the past.
Maybe what we'll do is at the end of the year, for the new year, we'll talk about this year in gaming as an unofficial games and gaming or video games in time episode.
Well, yeah, because we always Anyways, I think that's a good time to end this. So we will see you next week for a completely different episode, but we will continue to cover video games in time. Be sure to follow us at Odd Drunk Pod on Instagram. Check out our Facebook group, the Odd Drunk Pod Squad, and whatever other platforms we may have. We might be expanding. And of course, give us a rating, review on your podcast platform of choice. The download is nice as well, but that's up to you. See you next week. Any last remarks?
No.
I
like game.
I like game. Game is good. 1989 was good. Anyways, we'll see you next week.
This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. The Odd Drunk Podcast recommends you follow their Instagram and join their Facebook group for more fun content. To visit all of our current streaming and social media platforms, visit the link tree in the description. If you enjoy the show, we would be appreciated it if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts. The Odd Drunk Podcast would like to remind you to drink responsibly and not to drink and drive. Okay Colton, you can roll the outro now.